Pigweed here. Today we review an amber ale and ask, is DOGE doing more harm than good? Well, hello.
Hey, Pigweed, good to see you. All right.
are.
How about some beer and conversation?
That's a great idea, sir. What are we drinking?
So we're drinking this strange Nugget Nectar
Nugget
from Troegs.
Nectar. Oh, that's a once a year thing. I look forward to that.
Okay, very good. So what's on your mind?
Well, I remember my earliest memories of caring about politics was probably the Clinton years.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk. I remember seeing Al Gore on Johnny Carson, or would it have been Carson at the time, or David Letterman.
Okay, yeah.
He breaks an ashtray with a hammer and then talks about how much of the government waste went into studying how many pieces that an ashtray would break into. He was just pointing out
some of the stupid things we spend money on.
How much ridiculous stupid money, that's when they talked about the $900 toilet seat at the Pentagon and this bag of nails for an airplane costing $75.
Right.
And everybody was on board with the idea of reducing government waste.
Yeah.
And gosh, boy, the press was...
They were savage.
Mad as hornets, weren't they?
They were. The press was savage, and all the liberals were upset, and it was a constitutional crisis, and they were saying, who is this Al Gore guy to do this kind of stuff?
Actually, that didn't happen at all.
No, I think you're right.
It didn't. But somehow, when you get a new administration in with the same goals of cutting waste and fraud, boy, that's a bad thing.
Everybody likes to talk about waste and fraud, but nobody wants to actually cut waste and fraud.
Nobody wants to do the dishes.
Yeah.
So, let's drink this beer now. But before you get your face in here, this was a beer that I used to look forward to because it's just an annual, seasonal, and it's a little bit different each year. It's about 7.5%.
Yeah,
and it is. I told you I had an IPA.
Yeah.
Well, then I went on the website just to check my information, and it said no, it's an Imperial Amber. Does that change your anticipation of what it's a dry hopped Imperial Amber is as opposed to an IPA?
Yeah, so I guess what I would expect from an amber is a little bit more maltiness. And if it's an amber as opposed to an IPA, I would expect less hop bitterness. Because an IPA is going to have a lot of hop bitterness and hop aroma, where amber typically is low on the hops on both sides. So the fact that it's a dry hopped amber is kind of interesting, because dry hops tends to give you a lot of that hop aroma.
All right, go ahead and get in there, because this is...
It's almost a peach kind of a smell to it.
It's 4 hops featuring Nugget, which is why it's the Nugget Nectar. And it also has, so for the malts, you got Munich Pilsner in Vienna, you got Nugget Warrior, Tomahawk, Simcoe, Palisade. It's just an avalanche of hops.
Avalanche of hops, yeah.
And so excessively dry hop,
Yeah.
You know what? What'd you say, flavor-wise, peach?
Yeah.
It's suggesting mango.
Okay.
I think that's right down there.
Yeah. All right.
But,
so I guess if I was going to design an Imperial Amber, I would not put this much hops in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I might quarrel with what they call it. I'm not quarreling with the beer. Mm-hmm. It's delicious. It's good. I like it. But here's the big problem with craft beer. It's like you're always bending and breaking rules, and then you have to decide, what am I going to call the thing?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yes. It's you might be better off making the beer and then deciding on the style rather than starting with the style.
That's right. Or just calling it something completely different. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's good. It's very interesting.
It is good. It's once a year, and it's really, really
all
good.
Right.
Although
Troegs,
if I just told you it was an IPA, an East Coast IPA, you'd be like, yeah, that's fine.
Maybe. Yeah, I might have expected more.
Or would you have Smells good.
If you had just told me it was an East Coast IPA, I might have said I'm lacking a little bit of hop bitterness. I might have. I'm not sure, but it's hard to say what you would have said in another situation. That's right. All right.
So what
DOGE,
I was hinting at was the DOGE.
Yeah.
And the Department of Government Efficiency.
Which is supposed to be some sort of a play on the Doge coin, which is one of these pretend money things. The Bitcoin kind of things. Yeah.
So the stated purpose is we are going to go through line by line, investigate where is all of this money going, and is it going to the right place? But before we do that, when I put this topic on the calendar 4 weeks ago, I thought at this point they would still be looking into things.
Right.
Like you wouldn't really hear from them for a while. And
it's not the way the Trump administration is working.
They just came right out of the gate and just started kicking down walls.
Yes.
And the other thing that the news item was, at the time when I put it on there, it was the Vivek Elon Club.
Yeah.
So what happened there?
Apparently Vivek is running for governor of Ohio.
So first thing I heard was there was a disagreement between the two of them and he left. Then it was he's running for the government of Ohio. Now I've heard it's back to, well, it's both. But that there was a fundamental disagreement on the approach of DOGE. And in the process, he decided to run for governor. And so he just said, I'm bowing out. But they had different visions of how this thing was supposed to go. I was really looking forward to the team.
Yeah.
But
they're both brilliant, but they might have incompatible approaches to these kind of. But you're right. I thought it was going to be like this investigative thing, and then in July next year,
on the 4th of July,
next year they're going to say, "Oh, we found all this." No, they just go in and start ripping things out. It's kind of like
people, do you remember that? Banks, closing agencies, ripping signs off the door, kicking people into the street.
Do you remember that podcast we listened to a long time ago about that crazy guy who would repair clocks?
Yeah.
And remember how he would just recklessly start pulling things out and people would look at him and go, "What are you doing? This is like an antique clock." But he had such a genius understanding of the way clocks would work. He would just go in there and start pulling things out and say, "We don't need this and we don't need this, and we don't need this." That's the impression I get from the way DOGE is running. It's like they're just going in and saying, "Nope, forget that. Get that rid of that. Throw that out."
Waste.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, the anticipation was, they're identifying things. They're going to make a fuss about things. They're going to warn somebody. They're going to ask somebody. They're going to suggest things.
No. They're just going in and saying, "Stop doing that." Well, some of it is straightforward insubordination, right? Like the president came in and said, "We're not going to spend money on certain things." And then DOGE goes in and says, "You guys are spending money on those things." That the president issued an executive order saying you're not supposed to spend money on those things. So that stuff is pretty straightforward.
Now, is DOGE a sucker punch that the left didn't see coming, or the fulfillment of a campaign promise?
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Trump has been saying he's going to do this at every single rally he's had for the last 2 years or something?
I know, but I think the reaction is, but we didn't think you'd really do it.
I know, just you said it, but politicians don't do what they're going to say. That's the understanding.
Wait a minute, what's going on here?
You said you were going to do this thing, but we knew that was a joke.
Doing exactly what we said. Oh, I never thought you'd
never saw that coming.
What are you talking about?
That's right.
So it's supposed to be waste and fraud. Efficiency and the size of government. Yeah.
Now there are a lot of criticisms about DOGE, some of which I have some.
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the criticism that resonates the most with me is
broadly or in particular.
Broadly, is that we're complaining about an unelected bureaucracy, and we have an unelected person dismantling it. So that criticism somewhat resonates with me. However, Elon Musk, I don't think there's a human being on the planet who's undergoing more scrutiny right now than Elon Musk, right? Yeah. Everything is completely transparent. I mean, they're trying to be as transparent as possible. And every media organization on the planet is trying to crawl up, his back quarters and find out what he's doing. So,
but he's going, go to, there's this thing called X.
Yeah, go there. I say everything
that I'm doing is there. And if you don't like it, you can say something about it. And so in one instance Well, continue with your criticism.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one. Is that here's an unelected bureaucrat, trying to solve the problem of an unelected bureaucracy.
But can you imagine going through each of these things and saying, we're going to need to run this through Congress?
Exactly. And we're going to have to pass a law. Are you kidding? It wouldn't happen until 2090.
But the heads of every agency are unelected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nobody's elected the FBI. They are at least have to go.
They at least have to go through congressional or Senate approval. But yeah, so the thing is, there's so many bureaucrats who are not. They're not elected. They don't even go through a confirmation process with the Senate. They're just appointed directly. And that's what's going on here. So he's going through and finding these kinds of problems. So another thing that I think is a reasonable concern, and this would be a general pigweed and crow hill principle, which is, why are we trusting billionaire Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk, incredibly wealthy men, to go in there and do things for our sake?
Well, I would say these guys have no need to enrich themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as politicians who are making $175,000 a year, living like billionaires,
right?
That's who you're suspicious of. People who already have money, who are taking no salary.
Yeah.
Makes me think, you got to trust somebody.
Yeah. So the criticism is that this is actually a big ploy by Elon to get in there and jigger things so that more money goes into his companies.
I'm sure that Elon is thinking, how can I get more money? I'm only the richest man on the planet.
It's funny.
How can I?
Yeah, it's really funny if you look at him.
He's not buying islands or boats. He doesn't go on vacation. He works 7 days a week.
He lives in a tiny house. He lives in a very small house. He doesn't really do. He sleeps at the office. And I don't know if you remember the big thing a little while ago when people were complaining about advertisers were trying to tell Twitter, we're going to tell you how to run things at Twitter. And Elon Musk goes to this big advertising, place where all the advertisers are. And he stands up in front of all the people who are going to advertise and he says, go F yourself.
That is on the side of his plane. GFY is on the
Is it?
Yes.
That's pretty interesting.
That's good.
Yeah. So I understand and I sympathize with the idea. Elon Musk is a guy who gets money from government contracts. So there's a conflict of interest, and he might be trying to rig things so that he gets more. I sympathize with that. That's a reasonable criticism.
Yeah. But the difference is you work for an NGO that produces nothing, and you're getting millions of dollars.
Yeah.
The government is contracting to purchase a thing that the government can't produce from a company that produces the only thing.
Yeah. And so I appreciate that concern. However, as I said before,
why don't they cut his contract? Well, because the government wants the thing.
Yeah.
And he paid $400,000 for a bulletproof cyber truck or whatever. Yeah, Biden did that.
Yeah.
So,
anyway,
anyway,
the other side of this, though, is that he's under such scrutiny. And I'm absolutely for transparency and scrutiny. There should be oversight. And the problem here is that there has been no oversight. Basically, the kinds of things DOGE is doing now is the kind of basic oversight that you would expect of any sort of organization.
What is the acronym GAO?
Government Accounting Office.
Isn't that what they do?
You would think that, yes. So did you hear about the $2 trillion?
The inspectors general and internal audits.
Yeah.
Aren't all of these things going on all of the time?
They're supposed to be, but they're not.
Apparently they're not.
Yes, because we found that something like $2 trillion of money going out didn't even have accounting codes on it. Now, I've been in private industry.
Right, so there's a drop-down menu that you can just leave empty. And if you leave it empty, it's untraceable.
Yeah. So I've been in private industry my whole life and had to submit check requests for this thing or that thing. You could never buy anything without an account code. Anything.
Depends.
Exactly. No matter what it was you wanted to be. You spent $5, you had to put an account code on the $5.
So right. So it can be traced. Where was the money spent?
And to what account should it be attributed? But apparently they're not even doing these basic accounting things. So, I mean, obviously, that is a huge fall down in oversight. They haven't been doing the oversight that should be.
So, do you think the GAO is? Where is the money being spent, and is it being spent well?
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting bang for the buck? And right?
And is anybody looking at sort of basic things like? Did you know that it takes 3 months for a government employee to retire?
3 months.
And do you know why?
Because you can't just click a button. Say,
no,
I'm retired.
The reason it takes 3 months for a government employee to retire is because all the records are in paper in a limestone mine in Pennsylvania. And so these people have to go down this elevator in this limestone mine and get things out of boxes and paper and process everything by paper. And the limit, only a certain number of people can retire every
What's
day
the
or every
limitation
month.
factor?
The limitation is the speed of the elevator going up and down the mine, bringing the paperwork up.
And how long it takes Mildred to go over and find the file.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, can you imagine something? Why hasn't an auditor? We have all these people who are supposed to be auditing this stuff on a regular basis, and they didn't see this and say, come on, that's stupid, fix it. And so we've got $2 trillion of money that hasn't been coded properly. We've got stuff in limestone mines. We've got, it's just crazy the amount of inefficiency. And okay, so should there be more oversight and, so should somebody be checking what DOGE is doing?
DOGE watchers?
Yeah, the concern is who's watching the watchers.
Who's watching the watchers?
Yeah, and I'm all for that. I'm for there being people making sure that things are being done properly. Okay, so everything that DOGE does gets published on X and on the DOGE website. Yeah. So it's open, and President Trump has met with the media like every single day since he's been elected. Biden couldn't do it because he couldn't put a sentence together. But
he might have met with the media more times than Biden in 4 years.
Yes, he might have done that already. In 3 weeks, he probably met. Yeah. So Elon Musk has been very transparent. And if you want to question him, if you want to doubt him, by all means, question him and doubt him. If you want to say that what he's saying is not true, fact check him. Absolutely. I want to see.
Let me give you the one. So they're saying, they're just pointing out, $50,000 for gay comic books in Chile.
Right.
And, LGBT awareness in Syria, whatever. $50 million for condoms in Gaza.
Right. Oh, the wrong Gaza.
Gotcha. He is a liar. A liar who cannot be trusted with anything. And he just stands there and goes, look, I mean, he can't bat 1,000. I mean, sometimes I'm going to get things wrong. And yeah, you're right. But also, why do we need to spend $50 million on condoms for Mozambique?
Right.
The question is still the same. Yeah, I got that wrong. But so that's the level of scrutiny. Like, he's like, okay. I mean, everything is out there. I got that. I got one wrong. Okay.
Exactly. And
then you get hair on fire.
It's not like we want to spend $50 million for condoms going anywhere.
Right. You can't buy your own condoms.
Yeah.
So we'll supply. I mean, you pay for it.
At first we thought it was in Gaza because that's the Gaza that's in the news, and we didn't know there was a Gaza in Mozambique. But okay, whatever. Sorry about that.
What are they? All right. Before we get on the hair on fire, just what they're doing. So. Then again, when they put this on the calendar, I didn't think it would blow up like this. USAID.
Oh my gosh.
Is
that place is crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Disaster.
Yes.
And this thing, and they saw this thing, and within days, they fired everybody. It took the name off the building.
Yeah.
Why it even has a building? So it's
basically a place for politicians to bribe their cronies. That's what it is. And if you think about it, a politician, a congressman comes in and he makes $150,000 a year or whatever he is. And then 5 years later, he's got a net worth of $10 million. And that there's corruption going on. That they're paying people off. There's money under the table. And the way they do this is they have these special programs where they have money going out here, there, and everywhere. And they direct that money to their cronies. Remember the thing Solyndra under Barack Obama? That was like Obama giving money to his pals. And all the politicians are doing this. They're giving money under the table through these sneaky programs to the people that they support. And that's what's going on with USAID. All this crazy money going everywhere.
Again, these NGOs, and I've wanted to do a show on nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
You're like, look at, you take a bunch of pictures of the suffering in Haiti.
Yeah.
I'm going to set up a foundation to help the people in Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds like a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Then you find out that 90% of it is salaries and overhead.
Right.
Then you've got 10% that finally reaches the people. And the number was, well, we were able to provide 11,000 meals for suffering. Okay, well, so that's 11,000 people who got a decent meal. That's good. Came down to $1,200 a meal.
Yeah.
Right? So
the Salvation Army could have done it a zillion times better.
Yes. So that's the thing. You can always, when they come through and they cut some program, you can always find the person, the person who's not going to get that meal.
Yeah.
And then justify the fact that the Clinton Foundation used the money to pay for what's her name's wedding.
Yeah.
So yes.
Chelsea,
every time Chelsea. So yes. Every time you cut some stupid, wasteful program,
somebody's
you can find somebody
at
the end who actually did receive something of it. But that doesn't justify the 90% of the BS that went up there. So you set up a foundation, you pay yourself $250,000 and all your friends, so they're and in the end, I mean, I guess you've done some good somewhere.
Yeah.
But is that a good expenditure of public? Of taxpayers' money.
It's all a big money laundering operation.
It is.
In every organization. So, in every private organization I've been involved with, not business I've worked with, but like every church, every association, every club, they put out a statement of here's the money that's coming in, and here's how much we pay this person, and here's how much we pay this person, and here's how much we spent on this, that, and the other thing. I mean, you have very clear transparency on where the money is going. We do not have that with our government. The government is just spending a bunch of money and expecting us to trust them. And that's absurd. No, we do not trust you because we know that you're lying. We know that you're sneaking. We know that you're paying people under the table.
Right. And besides the money laundering aspect of it, I bet, the LGBT musical, what are we spending our money on? Now, there is such thing as soft diplomacy.
Yeah.
Right? Where you're spending... Soft
power, they call it.
Yeah, is that what it is? Soft power. So, like, the idea of Sesame Street in Iraq...
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the message, that might not be such a bad thing.
Yeah.
If what's going on there is the promotion of Western values and pro-American whatever, like the Voice of America or something.
Yeah.
So yes, that's soft power. That is not LGBT dance troops.
Right. Yeah, and here's the thing: we don't want to solve every problem on the planet by sending Marines and killing people, right?
Yes.
There are situations where we want to say, okay, sure, we're going to give you some food. Sure, we're going to give you some medicine. We're going to do these other things.
We want you to have a good opinion of America so that when other people want to influence you, you'll go, you know what? The Americans are actually better to us.
Yeah.
Okay. That's some money can be spent there.
Exactly. And that's money well spent if it's done properly and sensibly. But when you're spending money to promote drag queens in Islamic country, I mean, come on, that's not.
Surprised all of you are still alive.
Yeah, that's just not going to fly, and that's just stupid waste of money. So the USAID stuff has gone way out of control, and I think it's clearly one of these places where they're hiding money that they're giving to their political cronies and their friends.
So what about? I know my wife's from Mexico, and I've had some Mexicans pass through my life, and they are like, well, how are you working? And they're like, well, somehow he just like had a social security number. Now, on the one hand, he's kind of paying into a system that he'll never draw out of.
Right. Yeah.
So in a way, that's
not good.
It's,
No.
well, it's a win for us.
It's a win for us, but it's not good for him.
It's not good for them. But but nobody's keeping track of these things. So they go in there and they go, there are all of these duplicate numbers. There are people drawing money. There's from all over the world. There's like a scam system where you come in and you set up and it's like. But my question is, like I said earlier, with the GAO and the inspectors general, why does it take 12 20-somethings?
Yeah.
How come 12 20-somethings can do what you people have not been able to do in 30 years?
Because they're all
and they do it all in one day.
Because they're all in on the gag, which
they're in on the grift, or they just actually are using 1960s technology and paper trails in a salt mine or whatever.
limestone
mine. And these are kids who know how to do technology. Like, no, I can do what you were doing for the last 20 years. I can do it in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Or maybe, something like that going on. Like, I'm going to use AI and I'll find out who are all the cheaters.
I think it's very much like the firm. It's like we have dirt on everybody. And if you play by the rules, then you get your fat salary and you live a comfortable life and you get to go to the nice parties and meet the pretty girls and have your fun in DC. But if you step out of line,
you've answered my next question.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna you guys got the answer first. Here comes the question. The question is: so you bristled a little at rejecting DEI. You grumbled about kicking men out of women's sports. You whined about deportation, but you draw the line at ending the grift. Like now, now you're mad.
You've gone too far.
You have gone too far. Investigating fraud, waste, abuse, kickbacks will not be tolerated.
That's right. Yes, and that shows where their heart really is.
Yeah. Who's sweating right now?
Yeah.
Who is sweating? Who is objecting? Whoever is screaming the loudest, you're the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're right. They're upset about getting rid of DEI. But what they're But what they're really upset about is wait a minute. You're going to check where the money goes?
This is the hill we are willing to die on.
Yeah.
Is you investigating where the grift.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. It's crazy. And so we find out that $20 billion from some slush fund administered by the EPA under the Inflation Reduction Act. Which didn't lower inflation, but went to some front organization that was related to Stacey Abrams. This is the kind of thing that if you had a reasonable accountant, they would have said, "Hey, wait a minute, what's going on here?" If you were to take over a business. Let's say you bought some new business. The first thing you would do is sit down and say, okay, where are our sources of income? Where are our expenses?
Yeah.
Let's go through both of these things and find out what's going on. Why are we spending this money? Why are we spending this money? Apparently the government hasn't done that for what, 100 years?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Just making the public angry enough to say, "Oh, I'm paying so much tax. Where is my money going? If it's going for the local school system and to build a bridge down the road, and condoms in Mozambique and
right.
I mean, DOGE. Besides saving the money, maybe just inspiring the people to hold their politicians accountable would be worth something.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Are government jobs... Gosh, who was this? I heard somebody make a reference to saying, we already have UBI. Right? You're just making fake jobs.
Yeah. We have UBI for certain people.
Yes, so if you got
UBI is universal basic income, by the way.
By the way. So if you got a federal job 20 years ago, you showed up to work every day and you didn't murder anybody or steal anything, you're probably making six figures.
Yeah.
And
And that you're just entitled to that for the rest of your life because that's the way it works.
That's just the way it works.
So what do you think about this thing? People are saying that it's a constitutional crisis.
Well, constitutional crisis is they spent 3 years saying threat to democracy.
Yeah.
And it kind of lost steam, so they repackaged it as constitutional crisis.
You know what I think the constitutional crisis is when some minor federal judge in some little area can decide.
I cannot figure this out.
That individual federal judge can decide that he's going to stop what the President of the United States has decided to do. Now, unless anybody thinks this is a Trump thing, no. I said this when Biden was president. I don't see why one federal judge should be able to shut down something that Congress does or something that the president does by that one judge. That doesn't seem right to me.
I have not been. I don't know enough about how the federal judicial system works, but I've heard about judge shopping. So let's just the way that it's been presented to me is the administration. The government wants to enact some policy,
right?
And you're like, all right, so which of the...
which judge is going to rule in our favor, and we're going to go file in that court.
Right, yeah. And so the judge in Hawaii is going to stop some action that was going to be taking place in Pennsylvania.
That's the constitutional crisis. Yeah, that's the constitutional crisis,
because I understand, right, but they're supposed that judges rule on the constitutionality of laws that are passed. And,
So, yes, the court has to act as a check on Congress and the presidency.
Yes, I completely agree. That's part of the system.
Absolutely true. But why just one judge? Like that sounds like one congressman being able to say that okay, we have to stop this thing. No, you can't do that. So there has to be some.
And then what? And then the other side finds another judge somewhere else who overrules him, and then what? What are we doing here?
It doesn't make any sense. So what has to happen is either it has to be like a plurality of judges or it has to be the Supreme Court to do something like that. You can't just have individual district court judges here and there. So that's the constitutional crisis, not what's going on with DOGE.
So, I mean, this thing I didn't realize there was going to be such a slash and burn.
Yeah.
I know a lot so it's reducing. So the things are government efficiency, right? We have too many people doing the same job.
Right.
So
they want to reduce wasteful spending.
Right, but so obviously the SEIU and the government. I don't know why they have unions. How does government people even have unions? But that's another question. Of course, they're mad about it because they're losing people who are dues-paying people.
That's right.
But do you have a right to a job forever? I mean, can't you? So who are they? Who's getting slashed here?
I don't know. I don't understand why once you get a government job, you feel like you're entitled to that job forever. Like that doesn't happen anywhere else. No. You can get fired anyplace else for if your position isn't needed anymore, they get rid of you.
But I know what they started out with, and I mean I don't think any actual people are getting fired. People are voluntarily retiring because of the payout. The other thing is the probationary people.
Right.
So you come in and it's like you have 90 days. We can fire you for anything.
Yeah.
After that, we have to go through some sort of process. All of those people are getting fired.
Right.
Which is good because if they just got hired, then they aren't producing anything anyway. So you're not bringing in new people. You're getting rid of the probationary people. I
think so. Part of the problem. I mean, I understand. I sympathize with somebody who got a federal job. And they thought, okay, good. I turned down this other job and I took this job, and now I'm getting fired because I did nothing. I understand that. It's hard.
There's going to be a lot of individual suffering.
There's going to be a lot of suffering, absolutely. But from the perspective of trying to run the federal government in an efficient way and save taxpayer money, there have to be some big shakeups. Something has to change because
just go nibbling around the edges.
I know we've been getting more and more and more in debt for decades, and it can't keep going on. Something has to stop this. And you're not going to stop this by saying, okay, we're going to, cut a penny here and a penny there. You have to do something fairly radical, and that's what's going on.
Are you worried about the penny?
No. If they get rid of the penny, no, I'm not worried about the penny. I got a question for you. So apparently Trump and Musk are both interested in taking the money that they're saving from DOGE and giving a $5,000 payment to every taxpayer.
That's very interesting. I'll take it.
Well, as much as I'd like $5,000, I don't want them to do it.
Interesting. I mean, I think it's a cool populist move saying, look, you know what? You've been paying for garbage forever.
Yeah.
Here, look, here's a little something back.
Yeah.
All right. We're not gonna solve the $32 billion debt crisis by not giving you this $5,000. Have a nice Easter.
Well, so I guess my question would be, the country is in such bad fiscal shape.
Yeah.
That I want them to get the fiscal house in order before they start giving us money back. However, like let's say that they save $200 billion and they take $20 billion of that and give it out to. I mean, that's fine. Right. That would be a nice thing.
Do you need to means test this thing?
So only rich people.
No. I mean the other way. Way. Are you going to cut off people over 400,000?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think if they're going to do it, they should just give it to everybody. But I would rather, and this sounds like buying votes, you know. Yeah. I would rather just get the stinking fiscal house in order, stop the bad spending, get the budget under control. Don't just be spending a bunch of money on that. That's my opinion. As much as I would love $5,000, I mean that would be very nice. That would be very nice. Yeah.
And then of course the same woman who's calling for reparations says, "What's $5,000 to anybody?" That Crockett gal lady from Texas.
Yeah.
She's awful. Let me see if I need to. Somebody put up the spike in houses for sale in the DMV.
Yes.
And if you don't know, we know what the DMV is. Yeah. And what is that, the DMV?
Well, the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia.
DC.
Or DC, Maryland. No, yeah. The other DMV is Delaware, Maryland.
Yeah, that is the other. And then the other one is the Department of Motor Vehicles. But when they talk about DC and the surrounding suburbs, and which is a completely, I mean, it's
the fakest fake place in the world.
It's so fake, and it's bizarre. Not bizarrely, it's understandably recession-proof, right? The rest of the country suffers during a recession, and you know what? We here in the DMV, we don't notice a thing because we all have jobs because everybody works for the daggone federal government and all the. So so I want to see that. I want to see more houses on there. Once we start moving these agencies, once we move the Department of Agriculture to Nebraska, and
Department of Energy should be in Texas if it should exist at all. Right. And so absolutely, let's start moving things elsewhere. Right. That's a really good idea.
Gosh! And our fine governor, Mr. Moore, is very concerned about Maryland losing some of its tax base. So he has decided that Maryland, to make up for it or something, needs 5,000 new jobs. A state with a $3 billion deficit and plans for a $30 billion education overhaul, needs 5,000 new executive jobs for
government
people
jobs
to do. Oh, yes, well, right. But under the executive that he's in control of.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks.
So we need a Maryland DOGE to come in here and figure out what the heck is going on. All right.
Well,
so, bottom line.
Bottom line is bring in the chainsaw. And there's going to be some hurt.
Yes.
But you know what? Americans deserve it, and they don't just want to see their money pissed away on nonsense. So we should get to know where our money is spent. And if you think it's being spent well, the what do you call it, the soft power?
Yeah.
In foreign aid.
Okay,
justify it.
Yeah, justify it, and then we'll put it back.
But just sneaking it through USAID and paying off.
Yeah. There's too much cheating. It's got to stop. All right. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.